guys darting around. Now he sees Danaher, it gets beyond him. And Rayner does what he does best, and there's still some pushing and shoving going on.
Deep ball. Out the back is Cameron around the corner. And he's got it. Cameron's kicked his second.
Even made. McVie broken out of his hands. Goal coming up, Brisbane. Hipwood doesn't miss. Ground had gone the other way. Danaher's dropped the mark, and he's lost his feet. It probably isn't going to matter. He soccers it through.
That monster kick, but it's offline. Falls into the square. Hipwood almost. Soccer off the ground, Rayner.
Driving ball to half forward is good. Now the overlap. Berry can kick a goal. He does. Any score gives them the lead. McCluggage has kicked the most important score. Siren, Brisbane have come from nowhere to fifth spot.
The Brisbane Lions Fancast back for another week after a very up and down performance against the D's at the Gabba on Friday night. It's all thanks to Hop on Brewery Tours and Crisp Communications. You can check out their links at our website, brisbanelionsfancast.com.au. And of course, you can always catch this podcast each and every week, wherever you get them, Spotify, Apple, some other weird platform that you might use that you specifically use only for podcasts. So you can always watch it on YouTube as well. We're bloody everywhere, mate. But let's have a chat about Melbourne versus Brisbane on Friday night at the Gabba. I actually went along with the guys from Hop on Brewery Tours. It was their first time at the Gabba. Well, at least it was Jocelyn's first time at the Gabba. They seemed to enjoy it, but what a very frustrating but rewarding game at the same time. Got the win, but geez, it was one of those hair puller-outerers.
Yeah, I've still got most of my hair, I guess. But no, it was definitely one of the ones where I'm like, man, I feel emotionally drained after that game. And it was sort of, one of those, my heart rate was not good.
Yeah.
Not good. Because I think, it was just, 3 quarters where we kicked 3 goals, 6, 3 goals, 6, 3 goals, 7. So that kind of tells you all you need to know for when you're on top for 3 of those quarters. And in the second quarter, Melbourne were just kicking absolutely everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to call it 8 goals straight in the term because Harrison Petty doesn't really constitute a footballer. But I tell you what, when he was lining up from 60 with a barrel after the siren, I was like 95% sure that was going through, just out of pure spite to the footballing world. As it was, his radar was slightly off, but fair fucking kick.
Yeah, geez, he got the distance, didn't he?
But other than that, he can go into a hole. Keziah Pickett decided to show up properly, and I don't think I've seen Bailey Fritsch play selflessly, I should say, ever, except for that one game. So, Melbourne played very well.
Even Clayton Oliver had one of his better games for quite a while as well.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that, won't we? We'll get to that. Aside from that, we, all things considered, the game plan that we had was relatively sound. We won. We should have won by lots, but we didn't. I think going into, with the last quarter, we hit the post 3 times and had 2 goals that were not goals through moronness, stupidity, over-exuberance, take your pick. And I understand that there were probably some misses on the Melbourne side, but 3 posters and 2 fucking whatever they were really didn't do well for the heart, did it?
No, that was grim. We did just about everything we possibly could to bottle that game, and even that weird goal that Joe kicked, where he had him out on his own. Kai was running into goal, and he had someone else on the right hand side. He drops the mark, falls over, and then it looks like, from first thought, it looks like he's just kicking the ball along the ground to try and get it just out in front of Kai so he can run on. But it ends up going through. And it's just like the goals that went through, when you compare them to the goals that missed, you're just like, what is going on here? Like Kai on the wrong side with the clutch snap. And then Hugh McCluggage, what is he doing kicking that sort of goal, like drop punt? Obviously fantastic that he did, and it'll go down in history for this year at least. But there was some very, very comical and frustrating moments, especially in that last half.
Yeah, I think the caliber of goals was largely pretty good because if you look at Melbourne's one, you had like Fritsch on his non-preferred, you had Keziah Pickett kicking him on his left from 45 on the snap.
Yep.
You had that guy, probably named Chandler or Cade or Knob or something like that, just like dribbling one in from the pocket. Van Rooyen from a tight angle with a drop punt. It's just like, okay, whatever. But thankfully we won. So I think the best thing about all of that, the best thing about the game was that we won because it made Melbourne unhappy, which makes me tremendously happy because I like seeing people like Max Gawn unhappy. And I know Fagan spoke well about him after the game, but I don't like Max Gawn. It's not been a secret here on the Brisbane Lions Fancast.
No.
I think it was, the third episode I said he was the nicest guy in prison.
Yeah, I still don't quite understand that because I quite like Max Gawn. Like, he hasn't done anything to overtly make me think he's a bad bloke when there's plenty of other shit blokes on that team.
Watch him after the siren to Big O. That's all I'll say.
Okay, fair enough. To be fair, he smacked El around this week, so we will have a chat about all that.
But he didn't take an intercept mark.
He did not. No, Melbourne as a whole team only took 5. So that is something we did very, very well. Fagan actually, one of his better coaching performances. He seems to save them for Melbourne. We'll have a chat about the sub a bit later on as well because we've had a couple of questions about that. But the ins and outs, obviously, the big news throughout the week was going to be that Will Ashcroft came straight back into the senior team, came at the expense of Shadow Brain, and we had an unexpected change of Jack Payne going out with foot soreness, which is, on paper, could be a little bit worrying. I know Fagan talked about it in the post-match presser and said, oh no, it should only be the week, and it was only 6 days, and we wanted to be a little bit conservative with him, but foot soreness can, it's one of those ones that suddenly it's 7 weeks because it's a stress fracture, a hot spot, or a loose frank or something like that. So fingers crossed it's nothing more serious because, it's only one game and I'm prepared to save my judgment on Dara so far, but we definitely need our two key backmen playing their best footy if we're going to make a charge in finals. Let's press on with that. The changes, Brain went out, Ashcroft came in, and then Fletcher went as the sub. So what were your immediate thoughts when you saw all that?
It was probably like the third option that we talked about, We thought it would be Bruce or Carlucci, and then it was Fletcher. I sent you a message, I think, and said, like, the power of friendship has gone. But I think it added like a good bit of run and a good bit of versatility when the change was made.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Melbourne were quite tall, and I do agree. Like when we took, and this is probably getting ahead, but when we took Logan Morris off, he did look a little bit leggy, a little bit tired.
Yep.
And that can happen after a first year guy playing a string of 5 games or whatever. I don't sort of mind to the fact that he was like anonymous or whatever. He was just there, and they were big, and there was Tomlinson and McDonald and Petty and Lever, and they were all there.
Yeah, they had a very tall back line with May, Lever, Tomlinson and T-Mac as well.
Well, I think probably some of the stuff they showed on First Crack, which I'm loath to mention it, but like where all of the forwards were kind of leading back towards the goal, is probably an example of like Logan Morris putting in work that goes relatively unnoticed and definitely unnoticed on the stat sheet. So, but initially I guess it's more, whatever, you're going to fit Ashcroft in, so someone's going to come out. I thought it would be Revel, and I thought Revel would have been stiff to come out. So there were no easy options in that, I think.
I must admit, the thought was going through my mind in that first half when our midfield was getting smacked up that, our midfield mix has been disrupted with the addition of Ashcroft, and, what role is Berry playing? Like he's sort of half going to Viney, but also not really. He's sort of chopping and changing between Viney and Oliver, and Ashcroft started out on the wing, less inside minutes, and I'm sure that'll grow as the season goes. But I did think in that first half when our midfield was getting towed up, oh no, our midfield mix, there's been a disturbance.
Well, I think that Simon Goodwin probably expected Berry to go to Oliver. Probably listens to me. I don't know.
Probably, yeah.
So he lined Oliver up at half forward and rolled him back into the midfield in one of the, not actual things. But, I mean, I still would have put Berry on Oliver just because I don't think Berry's a good physical matchup for Viney. And I think I said that last week. I don't think he's got that kind of like... Viney's like a nugget.
Yeah.
And Berry is not really a nugget. He's more of a gangled creature, much like Oliver. So I think they made a mistake not sending Berry to Oliver and having Dunkley go head to head with Viney, and they changed it.
Yeah.
So they changed it at halftime, realized it wasn't working because Viney was very impactful. We obviously heard from Fagan at halftime, but I mean, the start of the game, it started off relatively even with us kind of getting ahead. Probably less scoreboard reward than we deserved, and then them getting a cheap one. I thought Harris Andrews marked that ball for all money. Whatever.
Nah.
All right. Fair enough.
Nah, I don't think so. Yeah, and then the second quarter was obviously just deplorable. 8-1. Yeah, and that, as you said, Fagan put some names up on the board at halftime, which he says he rarely does, and I can't actually fathom him doing that, and I can't picture him doing it very rarely, but he felt it necessary, and it worked. And how, after halftime, Klug, Neil, and Dunkley especially all just pulled it out in the second half, and, well, the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, it was a good response, definitely in the second half. I think we were kind of lucky the 2 goals we scored in the second quarter, but they kind of kept us in it. It was Danaher from a tight angle and Hipwood over his body. But it was like, if we didn't kick those 2 goals, which were pretty low percentage in the scheme of things, I think we're in a lot of fucking trouble.
Yeah. And, all the talk from Melbourne in the lead up to the game was that they had set themselves for this game. Max came out and said it, Goody came out and said it, and I suppose, as we've talked about on this show, over the last however many years, 4 years, we've developed pretty strong rivalry with Melbourne, and they're probably going to want to get their own back from what we did to them at the MCG earlier this year as well. So they obviously came with a chip on their shoulder and a mission to accomplish, and it's probably the best footy Melbourne's played in the last, 4 to 6 weeks. So to know that we can stumble our way over, play some pretty horrendous and ugly footy and still walk away with a win when Melbourne's put forward their best foot, there's comfort in that. That sort of footy's not going to win most games, but we were lucky this one. And, with the way Adelaide played on the weekend as well, we're going to have to lift if we want to get another win at the Gabba.
Yeah, I think we played ourselves in the last probably 3 weeks before this game into quite a bit of form in terms of an attacking sense, and just like the base level is there, whereas this was just an element of getting the result. And yep. I think I don't think this will sound stupid, but if we haven't won those previous 3 games, we don't win this. It's not like a trained thing. You don't just come out and win a tight game having not played well for a while, although you'll probably find someone probably did on the weekend, and like Port Adelaide, whatever. Shut up, me.
I mean, honestly, to dump on Port Adelaide again for 2 weeks in a row, the way they're carrying on after a 2-point win against St Kilda, like, come on. Like, really? You celebrating that? Whatever. Anyway, this is not about Port Adelaide. I had my say on them last week. Had some good feedback about that, actually, from a bloke on Facebook who seemed to agree with every word I said about shitting on Port Adelaide.
Fair enough. So rambling aside, I think it's more just like, if we're not in as good a shape as we've been in the last few weeks, we probably don't come over the top, even though we should have won by more. But, Melbourne will look at their, opportunities wasted. And I think it was an interesting thing. Like, I don't know if you rewatched anything. There's a couple of things I've got annoyed that have annoyed me from commentary. But one thing that I thought was a good observation, because our short mark kicking play that we've kind of brought in wasn't fully going, but it was still going a bit. And it was mentioned by the not idiot one of that commentary team, which I can't remember who is, that it might tire Melbourne out.
Sure.
And maybe it did. Aside from that, Matthew Richardson needs to shut the fuck up when people are taking goal kicks, because 3 times he said about Brisbane Lions players, he's like, oh, he's a really good shot, and they missed. So he did it with Hipwood, he did it with O, and he did it with Zach Bailey. He didn't do it with any Melbourne player. So, I mean, I'm probably giving Matthew Richardson too much credit, but A, he is the worst commentator, and B, he's an idiot. The thing is that he's like an unashamed idiot that just says things without actually, like, I don't know how he's been in footy this long, because he has an annoying voice. He looks like Noah Answorth's dad. It's just, anyway, move on.
I mean, I don't mind Richo, so there we go. We disagree on that one as well. But yeah, he mozzed the hell out of Big Owie, which was a real shame. And he knew it as well. He's like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Should I say it? Oh, he's reliable set shot. And then he missed it. And you're like, what are you doing? Anyway, so there. Other than that, yeah, very frustrating, but a rewarding game is the only way I can really put it. And, you know, it did go through my mind at 3/4 time when we were down by a few goals. I was like, well, last week, Melbourne's last quarter was pretty poor. You know, hopefully it's a trend, and it turned out to be not as bad. They were scoreless in last week's last quarter, but they certainly didn't hit any goals in this one, so it helped. And, yeah, we saw what Hugh McCluggage did, and, oh, my goodness.
Did you think we were going to win?
No. No, I did turn in the third quarter, and I said, we're not going to win this game. I
think it's funny because you and I, our personalities are sort of like, I mean, I know you've had this Port Adelaide vendetta in the past couple of weeks, but I'm generally the more cynical and bitter. But I think also the more optimistic of the two of us. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think when we... the goal that they kicked at the end of the third quarter, Melbourne, was a bit of a damper, but I definitely was like, we're well and truly in this, and we've got to win this.
I knew we were in it, and I knew we could, but we'd need things to go right, and just the way we were playing, I didn't think we were going to.
Well, the last quarter was a bit of an arm wrestle, and obviously we had those... the comedy of errors a couple of times, a couple of posters and stuff, and it took for Jared Berry to take control of the situation.
Yeah.
And I love a Jared Berry run in, 40-meter drop punt, love it, bursting through. And I don't blame him for, I wouldn't say burned Joe Danaher, but Joe Danaher was there with his arms out hoping to receive a handball. But I loved that taking of responsibility.
Yep.
And that really, I mean, basically the midpoint of the last quarter, and it was the first goal of the last quarter. So that was a massive moment in the game, and I was very happy for him because I think he'd toiled and struggled in the first half, and then had been sort of shunted out to the wing. And that sort of could have been a time where you can look at a player that's gone, I've played some good footy lately. We've now got the Golden Boy back, which we're all thankful, and we'll probably come to that later on. He's been shunted to a wing, and his head could have dropped, but he chose to, lead by example as someone that's not specifically... I mean, he probably is in the leadership group, but that's sort of by the by. But I thought that was a very important goal.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely was. And then, Kai Lohmann, again, however many minutes later, took the responsibility for that snap. He had a couple of words with Charlie, who told him to settle down and put it through, which was great. And Charlie put... another quietish game by Charlie's standards, but his first quarter was great. He obviously hit that set shot from 50, which was amazing. And a textbook Charlie goal, snapping around the corner, crumbing a ball as well, which was fantastic for him. Our key forward's a little bit quiet, and then they have been the last couple of weeks, but that's to be expected. And other than that, yeah, Bez, that goal in that last quarter was amazing. What did you make of Will Ashcroft's game?
I think that he will be better off for having it. And that's basically all I can say.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. I know you could feel the crowd just clench when he had that flying shot at goal in the first quarter, and then again in the last when he whacked it on his left boot and it hit the post, and you're like, oh, just so many like what would have been absolutely huge moments had he put those through. But yeah,
I feel like they're the sorts of things that would be goals if he'd played 3 games.
Yeah,
so
very possibly.
If we're a game closer to that happening, and if we'd lost that game, then I think I probably would have questioned the decision to bring him in terms of the structure and the formula and whatever. But yeah, I think it's a net positive because A, we won, B, he got to play a game, which will serve him in far better stead, and that kind of there's nothing like playing a game when you're coming back from a long-term injury in terms of match fitness, sharpness, and that sort of a thing. Like, it's funny. I know Dara Joyce has been playing a lot of VFL football, but at times they looked equally as rusty, in terms of slightly missed handballs and things like that. And Dara Joyce has copped heat, and I don't really understand why, because he's our 5th choice key defender. So what do you want from life if your 5th choice key defender's coming in, doing a pretty good job, to be honest, taking marks? I thought his kicking was like more exploratory, but in like a generally good way. He just missed like 2 handballs and they cost a goal. No biggie. But back to Ashcroft, I think, largely it was the best thing about the game was him being back playing.
Yeah.
Because I think it will be better going forward.
Yeah, I thought it certainly wasn't a bad game, wasn't a great game. It was a perfectly acceptable, perfectly cromulent game from Will. So happy for him to get the run under his belt. I did say, I was on the record of saying I wouldn't mind him coming back through the 2s, and I think the writing was on the wall that he was always going to come back through the seniors with all the chat in the lead up to the game and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, as you said, better for the run. It's just going to affect that midfield mix a little bit over the next couple of weeks, and who goes as the sub and all that sort of stuff. But what do you think about Bruce? Is he starting each and every week now, do you think?
There were moments where I feel like he made some strange decisions, particularly bearing down on goal, Bruce, where he had chances where you sort of like, if he was a left footer, he'd be like, okay, he's not super confident on his right to kick for goal in the pocket. But it's like, he's right footed, just kick a fucking goal. Like, kick the ball there. It was weird. It was sort of like, I felt like I was like losing my mind. I think we're in an opportunity, and I've talked about this more or less all season, of the idea of like actually kind of rotating players.
Yep.
Also, so you could probably have a handful of players that could be the sub, where you actually treat your team, because I think our group of 23 is very strong. I mean, providing, Jack Payne comes back, cool. That group of 23 is good. And there's not really a drop-off between 22 and 23. It's like, would you rather have Rebel? Would you rather have Archie? Would you rather have Fletcher? Would you, like, I don't know. Depends. Depends on who's feeling good.
What we want is Bruce's physicality, Bruce's kicking skills with Harry Sharp's fitness. That's what we need.
Well, that's just for Fletcher, almost.
Almost.
Like, that's probably, if you're going to combine the two, that's as close as you get, because Jasper Fletcher's effort and run is there. His kicking, I think, has improved significantly. He had a bit of a point to prove, I think, when he came off the bench, and I thought he impacted pretty well. But yeah, I think it's like horses for courses, and just an element of like making sure people aren't super tired.
Yep.
It's up to greater minds than mine to sort of figure out.
Sure. Yeah, no, he's definitely come along. He's and obviously he's turned himself instantly into a cult hero for the crowd, and you had Cornrows Bruce back as well, so I'm sure you would have loved that.
I did. I mentioned it I was like, there he is. Cornrows Brucey coming through the banner. So that was great. Loved it. He needs a hairdresser to go with him all times.
Yeah, true. It would be nice, wouldn't it? So the midfield, in especially the first half, but Max clearly got the better of Oscar this game. It was no Jordan Sweet matchup. It was definitely a gulf in between the two ruckmen he's faced across the last couple of weeks. He'll have another good battle against Riley O'Brien next week, providing he's in the team because he's been in and out lately for the Crows. But, yeah, I mean, Max is obviously the best ruckman in the competition and has been for quite a while. So he had his colours lowered, and then that trickled down to the midfield in the first half. But the second half was fantastic, especially from Dunkley, who got his... he's one of, 7 or 8 plays ever, and he's the first person to get 2 quadruple doubles in the stats. So I thought of you immediately when that popped up.
Yeah, well, it was against Carlton last week. I saw a comment underneath it that said, I wonder if Champion Data will have him ranked 3rd lowest on the field, which was getting massively downvoted, but I understood the subtlety of the joke, given that Hoyne was like, oh, actually his kicking wasn't very good. And it's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Yeah. Champion Data. So whoever wrote that comment, funny. Probably don't listen, but I got it. Don't worry.
No, I get it as well, yeah. Hoyne, Champion Data. Whatever. All right, let's do some votes for Hop on Brewery Tours. Hop on brewerytours.com.au. Book yourself a half for a full-day tour across some of the great breweries in Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Help the Australian beer industry and sink a couple with Matt and Joss, who won't be sinking because they'll be driving, which is part of the fun. They'll take you all around so you can do all the sinking. All right, who are your votes this week?
So I have Kai Lohmann for 1, purely because of that set shot.
Yep.
I have Josh Dunkley 2 for the quadruple double.
Sure.
And I am giving Hugh McCluggage a 3 for the goal and for his second half performance.
Sure.
I was seriously considering giving Barry Lohmann and McCluggage a 3, just for all the goals in the last quarter, but felt like Josh Dunkley's quadruple double probably warranted a vote.
Yep. Well, he's getting my 3.
Very good.
Clug the 2 for me, and Froggy Lester the 1. I think he's just plugging about his business, Froggy. There was a few backmen that let themselves down on the weekend, but Froggy certainly wasn't one of them. I thought he had a fairly decent game, and his kicking is, and we've received some correspondence about Froggy and his kicking and going down the line and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I thought he had another great game, Frog.
You'll have to elaborate on that because I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but kicking down the line, or just that's what he does, or is it some sort of secret magic box we've got?
No, here we go. I'll read it out to you from, I believe this one's from Ross.
Oh, is it a question?
It's an observation question. Here we go.
Do we need like observation obituaries or something?
No.
Like a segment?
Ross.
Sponsored by White Lady Funeral.
He starts off by saying loves the pod, which is great. Thank you, Ross. Love seeing Froggy and the backs play with poise in the second half. The crowd on the member side kept yelling to kick down the line, but that's where Max and May loitered. He waited for his switch or short options to open up. Should Frog get a 2-year contract next? He just keeps improving like a fine wine. Love his play. And good God, I listened to Essien on the way home in the car, and all they could talk about how good Jack Viney was.
I knew what you were going to say about when you got the first 3 words out. I knew exactly the moment. And that was clearly indicative of the game plan. And I remember the ball squirmed onto the far side and put us in good stead. I think we might have ended up with that Zach Bailey not shot on goal.
Oh.
So credit to Jack Viney there, or whatever. Beautiful stuff. I want to raise the flag for Starcevic because I think he is giving an unfair shellacking, let's say, or people are thinking that he got absolutely dominated by Cozzy Pickett. He wasn't on Cozzy Pickett for 3 of the goals, so it's a bit of the grand final Bobby Hill thing where it's like he actually was okay, and I thought his impact forward of the ball in the first quarter was really good, and he was pretty good throughout the game. Cozzy Pickett kicked 2 goals. He was also on fucking fire.
Yeah.
So what do you want? And if we're going to level any blame at the Cozzy Pickett and others, I think we should be looking at a certain smaller Irishman.
Yeah.
Who didn't have a great game.
Don't worry.
I just want to talk about that because it's been
that.
mentioned.
When we get to the questions, it is leveled at him. Don't worry.
So it was just because it was post-game on 7, post-game on Fox, and on First Crack, they all mentioned Starcevic getting tailed up by Pickett. And it's like, he wasn't on him for most of the game.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, it just shits me.
I
like that bald chrome dome, man. And I understand he probably, getting 2 goals kicked on you is not great. But I think Starcevic had like 2 goal assists in the first quarter. So it's like, okay.
You know me, I love Stars as much as the next man, but it wasn't his best game, that's for sure. But it certainly wasn't as bad as people are making it out to be either.
No, of course not. I just don't think that he was responsible for it in the same way that in the grand final, he wasn't responsible for 3 of Bobby Hill's goals.
Anyway, pressing on.
Let's not talk about that.
Our votes are done. Let's have a look at the twos, who, for the second week in a row, a tightish game against Coburg for a while before blowing it out in the last half, ended up winning by a best part of 50 points at Brighton Homes, which was fantastic. Pick of the bunch was our mate Luke Beacon, who, if he keeps doing this, will be in the side sooner rather than later. 29 disposals, hit the scoreboard with a behind, 25 kicks, 13 marks. Another complete performance from Luke, so he is definitely pressing his case. Other than that, it was the usual suspects: Tunstall, Lyons, Harry Sharp had another, fine game. Dev Rob, a little bit quieter, but still a great game. Will McLaughlin had some fantastic goals. He was our first mid-season pick. Darcy Fort hit the scoreboard as well with a couple of goals as well. Henry Smith keeps on keeping on. Pryor was fine. Kyle Dunkley was fine. Brendan Ryan was okay, not as good as his previous weeks. Carter Michael, for his first game back in forever, he got through the game, and that's all you can really ask for.
I was like, 2 shoulders.
9 touches, 7 of those kicks, 4 marks. So fine, whatever. You know what? Just as long as you stay healthy, I'm sure he'll be a tired and sore boy after that. So, having said that, some potential changes. Jack Payne for Darragh Joyce, if fit and available, is a given, surely.
Yep, agreed.
And I'm putting Luke Beacon in for Kenny.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like that's a bit of the people's choices coming out. In a pretty good time, because I just think like it's too detrimental over a larger body of work, and it's like at least Zorko fucking puts effort in to like run back and hassle people and stuff. Like that's one of the things that, although he might not be as astute defensively with the zonal thing, and obviously he can't really mark because he's the size of a wafer, but like at least he puts pressure on hard.
Yeah,
almost like a small forward in defense. So McKenna's becoming a bit of a liability, I think. His kicking is not super penetrating as it was.
No, I mean he did deliver the ball to Kai in that and he shaked and baked, danced around an opponent and hit Kai on the chest. So that was good. But yeah, you're right. He's not the Conor McKenna we had last year. His body's let him down. He's not, his creativity's still there, but it has led to a few more turnovers than we'd like. And his defense, like just being a defender, is not his strong suit. Never has been. And he's been just caught out a few too many times for my liking. So I'm prepared to give Luke Beacon a crack.
Yeah, I wouldn't be unhappy to see that.
Especially with Noah Answorth out at the moment. I think Luke Beacon's the next one up.
Yeah, no, that's good. Good shout.
And yeah,
Warren Treadray would say, "Good call."
No, I don't think he'll ever say that again. Surely, not worth it anymore.
The jumping of the hoops of plausible deniability in that was utterly hilarious too. But let's not go into Warren Treadray.
No, let's not. What we should go into is our questions for Crisp Communications. crispcoms.co. If your business needs any sort of marketing, Abby and the team at Crisp Communications will get it sorted. And of course, they've still got some Brisbane Lions Fancast stickers up for grabs. So head to our website if you want to get your hands on some of those. Let's start.
Get in quick because I ordered mine finally.
Oh, I've been meaning to send you. I got sent 4 and I've been meaning to send you 2.
Right. Well, I finally was like, all right, the time is here. I will now order some stickers.
Lovely. Okay, let's start with a bit of levity from Winston, who has been a long time
Churchill?
listener. No, Winston Smith. Hate to dox you
That's
online there.
pretty British, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's every chance that it's not his real name as well. But
The big question here, though, is before the question: will Winston Churchill return from the dead in the same way that we mentioned Julian Assange 2 weeks ago, and then he got released? What is happening here in Fancast land?
and the
You
same,
be the judge.
and you mentioned bring back all the goals, and did they what? They not just bring back all the goals, but all the goals from like the last 4 or 5 rounds as well.
Well, also you got you bringing up Brenton Speed, you bringing up that horse commentator,
Yep.
Assange, Winston Churchill, necromancy involved. Who knows?
Yeah. Look,
We'll figure it out. But the list goes. The double. I willed that into existence last week. So there's some weird stuff going on here. Let's hear from Winston Smith.
all right. This isn't necessarily a question. Just thought he'd want to mention this, and I love this. He said, "I just found out that my 5-year-old son honestly thinks the words to the Lions song are, 'Go Lions, Brisbane Lions will kick you in the balls.' He doesn't even sing it with malice. He just thinks that's how the song goes, and he sings it with a big smile on his face." And I love that, and we should start a petition to change the words to "will kick you in the balls."
See, that's the kind of mishearing that you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh god, he's going to be so disappointed, isn't he?
Yeah. All right. I did mention this before as well, and thank you for Winston for sharing that with us. That was very fantastic. He said, I'm not even going to correct him. I said, nor should you. We've had a couple of mentions about the sub. Neil on Twitter, what rationale behind putting Fletcher as the sub? I thought he did very well when he came on. And Chris got in touch as well via Instagram messages. Just want to get your thoughts on the best ways to use the sub. I thought on the weekend it worked well, activating a bit earlier than normal, having the game impacted by a player like Fletcher who runs hard and can make an impact straight away. Seems like most times we use the sub as a backup for an injury rather than an impacted player. Yes.
Yeah, I would wager that it's more down to what wasn't working.
Yep.
And I think that's positive. We love to see it. But the thing is, how many times do we generally put a sub on that's a like-for-like player anyway? This is one of the few examples where we didn't do that. So, and God forbid, Fort's a sub. And I know we've said it now, so something will happen. But, you have a Ruckman as a sub and you bring him on for a small. And it's like, it just kind of coagulates things in a horrible way. So I think it's one of the actual few examples we've got of a tall coming off for a small. Like, I can't, off the top of my head, think of another time when that's actually really happened.
No.
Can you?
No. And if it has happened... only those couple of instances where Oscar's gone down.
Yeah, true. But, that's not good.
No. And then after the first time, it was very reactionary where Fags put Ford as the sub. So, yeah, I thought... And we've spoken about it before. The sub is one of those ones that if used right, it can actually help and impact the game. And I thought pulling the trigger earlier on the sub for the first time in, recent memory, it was really good. Because all of a sudden we're at the game and then, Fletcher's on the field. Didn't expect that. And then there was a bit of a scramble of trying to figure out who it was that got subbed out. And you're sort of scanning the field of who's not there. And then you're scanning down the bench of the players standing up. And you're like, oh, okay, well, it looks like Logan. And then, eventually word comes through that Morris. And yeah, I thought, as has been mentioned here, that it was good. It was a good use of the sub.
Yeah, and it's the sort of thing, if Logan Morris had kicked 3 goals, he wouldn't have gone off, but he didn't. So you pull the trigger and you use it as a tactical sub. So, yeah, I thought it was positive. I don't know whether I necessarily... long term, I don't want to see Fletcher as a sub. I want to see him in the team because I think he's really good. And I think the more games he plays, the better he's going to get. I do want to mention, actually, after the game, I talked a couple of weeks ago about him sitting by himself in the change rooms after with 2 chairs either side.
Yep.
Empty. They weren't empty this week. He had Will Ashcroft next to him.
Lovely.
And I was really happy to see that. So
Yeah.
that was a nice little moment that wasn't had by me, but I liked it. So thumbs up.
Neil again through Twitter. Do you think we needed in little air quotes there, that sort of performance, a comeback rather than a dominant game?
It can't hurt. I think there was a stat I saw that it might have been on Fox Footy where it was like we hadn't won from being behind and Melbourne hadn't lost from being ahead in the last change. So, I mean, it was more good just because Melbourne lost. So I'll take it anyway.
Yep.
What about you?
Yeah, I tend to agree with what Neil's saying there as well. It's sort of, yeah, it's not often we're on that end of the equation. Like, we've had a few games where we've had the lead and had to hold on and really grit our teeth and just hope to God, like, the siren comes, that we can get away with the win. So it's good to be on the other end and actually have a come from behind. So it's good. And as you said,
it'll hold us in good stead, I think.
Yeah, and we'll have a chat about the Crows very shortly. But as you said, we've had some pretty decent wins, and those were, those odds that came into the game. Those Melbourne's longest odds for winning a game since 2017. So, like, we went in so heavy favourites. Like, it's the nature of the industry being so reactionary that everyone just jumped on board Brisbane. And I guess
you gotta wonder if they got the tactical report of the game plan before the game, given that it was like Melbourne's fewest intercept marks for 25 years or whatever. So maybe they got the insider word and were like, well, they're gonna have their lowest intercept marks for 20 years. Maybe it all makes sense in the end. Who knows? But
yeah,
selling secrets is not a trade that I'm into.
James, also on Twitter, if Jack Payne is injured again as finals approach, who other than Darragh Joyce have we got? It's a bit of a worry. And yeah, I understand the worry behind, the Darragh Joyce selection, but as you said, he's certainly not our first option. Normally we'd have Duday or Gardner or...
Yeah, he's fifth in line.
Yeah, so it is I must admit, it was a bit of a worry knowing we were going to the game as Harris as our sole, quite tall key defender with Darragh Joyce and Froggy as medium heights. But I knew that Darragh was playing very well in the twos in the weeks leading up, so I had a little bit of faith. But the jump from VFL to AFL spooked him a little bit, and he certainly had some all right moments, but he certainly had some moments that were like, ooh, I wish Jack Payne was here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought his kicking was almost more ambitious than Jack Payne's, and that helped a lot at times. There was some missed handball, but at the same time, it's pressure, and that's probably the biggest thing. It's like the perceived pressure and the actual pressure that's the difference between VFL and AFL, and why certain people struggle. And it's like, how often have we really honestly had people come from the VFL team straight into the first team and knock it out of the park in the first go? It hasn't really happened all that much.
No, until Luke Beacon does it this week.
I know you can point to Rebel and Logan Morris potentially, but at the same time, they were good for a quarter and a half, and then they dropped off because obviously we had no players. And so it's just it doesn't happen super often. But in terms of, let's say, knock on wood, that Darragh Joyce goes down. Are we bringing in Henry Smith to do a Rory Lobb performance?
No, thank you. And the thing is, it's like...
Well, what else then, man?
I know, I don't know. The next name is a bit of a worry. I mean, Luke Beacon's got a little bit of height to him, but yeah. Oof. The thing is, those names you mentioned before, Bruce and Logan and stuff, they're all playing forward of the ball, so... if you make a mistake forward of the ball, it's not as glaringly obvious as someone who is on the last line of defence, because quite often it leads to a goal. And, Van Rooyen certainly outmarked him a few times, got the better of him. And, I mean, the mistake, it's tangible because it's right there in the form of a goal, straight away. So, I think the jump was a bit much, but like Ashcroft, he'll be better for a run in the AFL. And, if Jack Payne's foot is still a couple of weeks, then, it's Dara's spot, because just by process of elimination, it's his spot. So we're going to have to back him in as much as we can. And Harris's workload is just going to have to double.
Well, I think there's also an element where we've kind of been privileged to have all of Jack Payne, Lester, and Harris, who are all pretty exceptional one-on-one defenders.
Yep.
And at a situation where, because we're trying to play quite on the front foot, there's a lot of exposure on the defense. Harris got outmarked by Van Rooyen too, and it's sort of he shouldn't be. And in a perfect world, when pressure's on the ball, but because we're trying so hard to kind of keep the ball locked into the forward half, when the ball does get out, it tends to be like a unpressured kick into the forwards, which can make the defenders look worse than they are.
Yeah.
So, and if everything's all working and stuff, Dara Joyce can take marks. He took a few contested marks. He can take uncontested marks. So I think it's more it's almost a victim of circumstance, because I think the way that we're playing will leave defenders more exposed, particularly the keys. But because we've got such good ones, generally, it doesn't look as bad.
Yeah.
So when there's a marginal drop off, it looks way worse than it is. So, one thing I noted going to the VFL prelim at Werribee last year, Dara Joyce is huge. He is so big, and he's also quick.
Yeah.
So there's things you can work with there. I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, and look, if he puts in 3 or 4 weeks of that, then maybe it's time to start worrying. Definitely time to start worrying if he's coughing up, 3 or 4 goals a week. But I think it's the cards we're dealt at the moment. So fingers crossed, because obviously we'd all like Jack Payne in that position rather than Dara. But
I don't think he coughed up 3 or 4 goals though. 2 tops.
No, and at the end of the day, a lot of that comes down to our midfield getting smacked as well. So it's.
But do you look at the mark that Van Rooyen took out the back of Harris, where he outmarks Harris? Is that an error Harris made leading to a goal? Because that's no different to really the ones that Dara made. Dara Joyce just missed a handball in midfield, which how many players across the field have missed a handball?
Yeah.
So it's cutthroat, but I just don't think it's as big of a deal as possible, or possibly being made, I guess.
All right, let's get on to Brad, who has singled out a couple of players here. One is Dara Joyce. He just says, "Hell no, never again." McKenna should have been dropped 3 weeks ago, and he's thrown in Zach Bailey as well back to the VFL until he learns not to not to put out the Donagi, holding the ball every single time he gets it.
Well, he did actually do a fend that wasn't holding the ball and made space. He didn't fend on the one that he possibly should have fended on, Jack Viney. So, by my metric, it was one holding the ball, and it was.
It's just that was a goal. If he had of.
Yep, it was.
And you could see he wanted to put the goal through, and I don't know if it's a case of the people around him not talking to him, or him knowing how important that goal was, because we'd pissed away so many opportunities in front of goal, so he was taking a little bit of extra time and care with it, and ended up taking way too long and a step too much, obviously.
That said, if that's any other player but Viney, he's getting that shot away. It just happened that it was Viney at that exact time, jumping like a madman. I should McKenna have been dropped 3 weeks ago? Maybe, but who comes in? We don't know. We said Beacon a few weeks ago. I thought McKenna showed far more last week.
Yep.
But
he had a good week
as I
last
said,
week.
it is kind of, it's testing the patience a little bit.
Yeah, he had a good week last week.
Zach Bailey's frustrating, and we talk about him every other week, and it's if he kicks 3 goals, 4 goals in a final, no one's going to care.
Yeah.
And he can do that. He's one of the players that can do that. So, and I think he would be welcomed into every team in the AFL.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. Mr. I and Elkinator both with very similar thought processes here. Elkinator says, could Beacon replace the struggling McKenna? Yes, is my answer to that, obviously. Mr. I says, McKenna can't defend and isn't offering the same run and carry we need him to do. And he also asked, did Berry have another role change again? And I don't know if it was necessarily a role change. I think it was just he didn't spend as many minutes inside with Will coming back. They had to split those minutes a little bit more. So, and Hugh played a little bit more inside as well this week.
Yeah, I think it was just an element of, like Fagan said it pretty well in the press conference, where he sort of mentioned when McCluggage is playing really well, it's kind of transformative to the team because his ball use is generally so good. You know, it's and I know Lachie Neale's ball use has improved significantly this year. Not Dunkley's strong suit.
No.
So when you're looking at it going as a midfield combo, and I'd say probably not Berry's strong suit either. He can kick well some of the time, but the difference between his best and his worst in terms of a disposal, particularly going inside 50, is wider, let's say. Whereas I think McCluggage, his kick inside 50 is one of the best in the competition. So when you have a composition like that, you're looking at McCluggage almost being like the third in the chain to then get the ball inside 50. So when he's humming, I agree with Fagan that we look a better team. And that's why we were able to come back in the second half. But not necessarily a role change. I think the jury's out.
Yep.
I think it's just him and Viney, and then the mix wasn't working. And it was good that they acknowledged that rather than just sticking with it and beating it to death and losing by a couple of goals or, breaking even in the second half.
And I think there might be another week or two of growing pains as we welcome Ashley back into the fold, and what effect that may have until we sort of get a little bit more system into it. And, we saw that in the early season with all the injuries and welcoming new players in and how it affects the structure and stuff. So there may be a little sort of miniature version of that with Will coming back into the team. So we might have to just be a little bit patient with that for the next week or so. But I think, it will be worth it in the long run, and to get game time in him before finals, because we failed to mention we're in the 8 for the first time this year. We finished around in the 8. We started at 5th, dropped all the way back down to 8th by the end of it. Could have moved up if it wasn't for that pesky Freo win, but we had some wins go our way, which was good.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, I'm just kind of cheering for all the teams, excuse me, all the teams that are sort of just slightly lower. I'm enjoying this like fruit machine going. It's just rolling on and on and on. Like Fremantle with a pisser, but it's good to see Sydney lose. I just hope that doesn't kind of, they've got 2 very soft games coming into the one against us. One thing we did manifest, talking about manifesting all kinds of crazy stuff. The premiership window did not come back last week.
No, but I looked it up.
And I checked, and we would have been in it.
Yeah, top 4 for both. We're sitting at 4th for both.
Because, I saw a stat that was like the first time ever a team's been top 4 for both attack and defense, but has been sitting 13th in VFL, AFL history. So we still sit in there. Will Gary Lyon bring it back? Who knows? But it probably fits the narrative a little bit better. It might have been a bit too early to jump last week, but...
Well, maybe because it was still the bye rounds.
No, last week was the end of the bye rounds.
Oh, okay.
So I thought it was the perfect opportunity to bring it out. Be like, everything's all level. We'll have a walk down the corridor. But maybe because Brownie wasn't there, he wasn't there to just like completely and relentlessly throw shade at Gary Lyons. So, but they'll probably bring it out tonight, and we'll be in there.
What else? The other thing we manifested last week, and we spoke about on the podcast, and Logan Morris being the Rising Star nominee, which was great.
Yeah, I'm glad that I said you're like, it'll be egg on your face. And I was like, no, I'll be happy. Like, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Because, when that came out literally like an hour after the episode came out, I was like, yes, hooray. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Fun little guy.
Fantastic stuff. All right, we've got the Crows this week. Sunday afternoon at the Gabba. I think it's going to be about, 4 o'clock-ish, 4:30, something like that. So, the graveyard shift, normally reserved for a Fremantle. 4:10 at the Gabba this Sunday against the Crows, who had a pretty good win against the Giants on the weekend, and Isaac Rankin is finding some good bloody footy. So, obviously... This game earlier in the year was a draw down at Adelaide Oval. We were about even on the ladder at that stage, and even for wins and all that sort of stuff. So since then, we've sort of sprinted out ahead, and Adelaide's maintained, albeit with a good win last week.
Yeah, it kind of. Where have GWS gone? I know that's not the point, but far out, hey, like
Well,
just not happening.
yeah, like they've obviously gone down to Adelaide this week, just gone. But before that, they lost to Sydney. They beat Port the week before that, and you thought, okay, maybe they got their game going again. They ran it close with Hawthorn. But yeah, certainly not the GWS we played earlier in the year. And now Sam Taylor is out for the foreseeable future with one of the nastiest injuries you can probably fathom.
Yeah, I suppose more so just the idea that a lot of the chit chatter is like, without Toby Green, he's dropped off, and the rest of them have. And we played against them without Toby Green, and they were amazing. Like, they were so good in that game in Canberra. Callum Brown looks a different player after he concussed Carton.
Yeah,
he just looks like he's lost all. There was one in the game where he was running at like a hard ball and pulled out of it, and it was just like, the dude's been broken here, because he kind of did the right thing and got 4 weeks for it. So yeah. So back to Adelaide. They're up and down.
Yeah,
more down than up, and
I really don't know what
hopefully...
to expect from this game. Hey, because they've got a good list, and a list that obviously has underperformed on the expectations that were put on them at the start of the year after just missing out on finals. Severely underperformed, you'd say, but they've got some good players there. Like, I really like Jordan Dawson as a player, like one of my favourites. Rankin obviously is playing really good footy. They've got some imposing key forwards when they want Riley Thilthorpe maybe back in the team. He played in the twos over the weekend. Fogarty is so hit and miss. Taylor Walker, great year last year, but not so much this year. Then they've got Saligo and Pedler and Rochelle and stuff that have all got promise but aren't necessarily delivering week in, week out.
It's a wait and see. We should win, but
yeah,
depends on which it depends on which iteration of both teams. But I've got more faith in the consistency that we're showing at the moment, and even just the idea of grinding out a win Sunday afternoon, kick in the park.
Yeah,
be all good.
Obviously the thing that's going to work in our favour is we've got a day extra break, and we don't have to travel this week. For the first time this year, we've got 2 games in a row at the Gabba. So Friday night, recover Saturday, Sunday, back to work Monday. Don't have to hop on board any planes this week. We can sleep in our own beds. And we've got until Sunday to make sure we've got everything cherry ripe, and gives Jack Payne an extra couple of days as well to get his foot back in order as well. So, I think all that stuff will come into effect.
Will we have another battle of the fog versus the frog?
Ooh, that could be right.
Yeah, it was. He got beaten up a little bit. Just the fog is a big man, isn't he?
He is a hulk of a man.
But I think there's not too much really to know what to touch on here. I'd be looking at trying to exploit Rory Laird in half back, where he's been sort of playing at the moment. A bit slow for mine. Doesn't have the zip of Zorko. So I think there's potential there to be made with some of our half forwards. But it's just a matter of keep doing what we're doing, and just minutes into Ashcroft, win the game, kick straighter than we did, and stop making little errors running into goal.
Well, last time we played him, it was the points from the back half that got us, and especially leaving Isaac Rankin to sort of do basically what he wanted around a few stoppages, especially in that last half. So if we can try and correct those things a little bit more, then it's obviously going to be an improvement on the last time we met them.
Because that was the game that happened before we played Gold Coast, and then we played them, I think.
Yep.
So it was the second game after we had everyone injured, and it was Logan Morris and Bruce Revell's second game. So yeah, I think we should
Shadow
be
Brain's
okay.
first game.
Right. Yeah. The old introduction.
Yeah.
Holding the ball followed by a mark. So.
Yep. There you go.
Anything else in the AFL tickle you fancy this week?
Nah, not so much. Like it seems like every week there's questionable umpiring decisions that may or may not be deciding the outcomes of games, but all in all, it's been pretty. Yeah, just now that the bye rounds are done, we can just sort of press on to the back half of the season, and hopefully we can continue this good form because we've got some winnable matches on the way, and we've got Sydney up here, we've got Collingwood down at the G, which is going to be a huge match by the time that rolls around. Other than that, they're just sort of 50-50 games, and finishing off with Essendon at the Gabba, which will be well, who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, but yeah, I think
I got a question. Do you reckon any other player pins both arms and gets a guy hitting his head on the ground gets a week or two? Any other player other than Dangerfield?
He was obviously very persuasive. And apparently he spoke for 45 minutes, which
that would make me just want him to shut up.
My understanding
I'd be like, have off, shut up.
Yeah,
like I've had enough of you.
Yeah, my understanding is if you pin both arms and they hit their head, that's your death warrant sign. So
one of the things I thought was funny. So I think is it Caden Brown, the guy that was a sub for Melbourne.
Yeah. Caden, something like that.
Camden, K Brown, whatever. Yep. So they had Dangerfield tackling Walsh, and the big question was, what's he supposed to do instead of that? And my response to that is, look at this guy K Brown tackling Larkey, Kynan Brown tackling Larkey at the end of the North Melbourne game. A first gamer doing his first act in football, a tackle from behind where he pins both arms, rolls, and releases one.
Yeah.
A first gamer did the alternative that no one mentioned. And to me, this one, the Dangerfield one, was significantly worse than the Will Day one that I crap on about all the time from Hawthorn last year, where that was a reactive tackle where he happened to pin both arms and it was deemed a dump and he got 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if it's anyone but Dangerfield, that's getting weeks. And I think that is
Do you think Walsh contributed to it?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think Dangerfield is lying if he thinks that he is pinning his arms and trying to pull him back, because then what happens? The guy snaps his back backwards like a scorpion. Cool. What he did was he actually tackled him, jumped off the ground, like the thing that Cam Rayner does. It's a bit not great. He dropped his hips and swung like a pendulum and tried to argue that he was pulling back to try and avoid him hitting his head. It's no, it should have almost been in the back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's really, really poor. Really poor, but it's Dangerfield, and he's arguably one of the biggest knobs in football for a guy masquerading as a nice guy. So,
I hear exactly what you're saying there.
That's also a bit why I don't like Max Gawn, because I think he's a not a very nice guy masquerading as a nice guy, and I find that to be detestable, because I'm not palatable to everybody, but I don't claim to be. So, Alex Neil-Bullen will want his time again, won't he?
Oh, yeah.
Did you see any of the Melbourne fans trying to argue that Joe Danaher tripped him?
I did see that, and
did you see the other Melbourne fans saying, "Shut up"?
Yeah, it was a bit of a 50-50 split on that one. I thought, to the eye, gut reaction, and even the commentators, it was deliberate. Man dived over the line, scored a try. You get what you get.
I like the fact that Simon Goodwin said in the press conference, I'm sure that decision will be talked about during the week. Has not been mentioned.
Yeah.
Because it was so blatant, and everyone knows it. So sucked in, Simon Goodwin. Sucked in.
Yeah. Now there's a bloke I don't like.
Twit.
There's a bloke I don't like. Simon Goodwin.
But aside from that, Gold Coast, they did pretty well.
Yeah, huge win for them. And they continue their streak of winning at home, not winning anywhere else. So that's going to be a bit of a worry when we come up against them in a couple of weeks' time as well at People's First Stadium.
Bring it on. Not Heritage Bank Stadium.
No, and we'll be coming off a big slog against the Swans. So yeah.
Yeah, I think they play pretty well. It's amazing to sort of think that they can be so bad, like consistently away from home.
Yeah, it is crazy, but as we know, with a club that's sort of building, it's step one is making sure you can win your games at home, and hopefully pinch a couple away. But they haven't managed to do that yet. So, next year they'll hopefully improve on that and go from there. I mean, I like the Suns. It's crazy. Did you see a couple of weeks ago there was a survey done of they surveyed
most hated teams or whatever?
Yeah, and so the Suns fans had us at 1 or 2, and we didn't have them
number one with like 80 with a bullet.
And we didn't have them in our top 5, and it's just sort of like, I think most Brisbane fans, when we're not playing Gold Coast, really like Gold Coast because I think we can see the bigger picture of it being better for footy in Queensland and want to see them succeed. And it would change if they were playing finals regularly and had won a grand final. I think we'd despise them a little bit more, but at this time we're sort of just like rooting for them to get up the ladder a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't. There's no stakes in it really. Like, and I think a lot of people were sort of like, "Oh, why do Gold Coast hate the Lions? Like, is it like Big Brother syndrome, little brothers?" It's like, no, it's because what are they going to do? Like, hate Hawthorn for no reason? Of course they're going to hate. Like, there's, it's just sort of, it doesn't make any sense. Whereas we've got grand finals and lost grand finals, and then like we've had like bona fide rivalries, and I think there was a lot of recency bias with what was on that list. Because we had
basically
Collingwood.
Basically everyone had Collingwood at number 1.
Yeah, it was Collingwood, Melbourne, Richmond, Geelong.
Yeah,
and it's like, who have we played big finals and lost big finals to? All 4 of them.
Yeah.
Not enough Port Adelaide in there for me, but at the same time,
that was upsetting.
I would have basically every team on there because I hate every team. I mean, there are some teams that I'm like okay with watching at the moment, and they're basically like GWS, Crows, Gold Coast, but I think that was the first time that I've actively been like wanting gold, like cheering. I don't really cheering for the Gold Coast because I was just like, come on, how about these Collingwood people? I hate Collingwood. So,
well, we're only half a game behind them now on the ladder.
I was actually kind of hoping for another draw because at least that way it would have just. I want our percentage to factor in really well. I wanted the Fremantle. I mean, I know Fremantle had a draw, but they earlier on. But yeah, good on you, Gold Coast.
Good on them indeed. All right, that'll about wrap things up for this week. We'll be back next Monday, basically straight after the Adelaide game. So I will solicit for questions, and we are going to draw the winner for the double pass for that Sydney game next week as well. So that'll all be some fun stuff to look forward to. Don't forget to rate and review the show on Spotify and whatever, and check it out on YouTube, and do all of the things that the Brisbane Lions Fancast is about. And pay our sponsors a visit at their websites and book a tour or get some marketing for your business because they're good.